Good morning, Shavua Tov. Have you ever been in a situation in which you looked back on something that you did or maybe you did not, and you just have wanted this episode to be completely erased from your life and memories? Yes. So if we would have such a button, then should we press it? Reset, yes. Erase, format. As I don't do they still format computers? Yeah. I mean, yeah. So
but you lose a lot.
Exactly. So can you push it? Is it really possible in your life, and even more so in the life of a nation? And even if it is possible, is it desirable? This is the question that we are going to tackle today, speaking through the very fascinating story, maybe one of the most famous and infamous stories of Jewish messianism, Mashiachiyut, in all of Jewish history, and that is the story of Shabtai Tzvi, which usually to his name is adjoined the nickname Shari, Shin Resh Yud, which means Shem Reshaim Irkav, the name of the wicked should be uprooted. So who are we speaking about? What is the story? Of course, as I said last week when you spoke about the expulsion from Spain, the conversion, we are speaking about extremely complicated and long, where do you start? Very long and complicated stories, which I'm trying to tell in very short minutes, because our topic, as in last week, is not the story itself, it's aftermath. How did people relate after the bubble burst, after everything went down in flames? So that is, so we first tell the story very, very shortly, in a very terse way, and then we'd go into the reactions in the Jewish world. So we are speaking about the 17th century, and to be more accurate, the years of the explosion of the Sabbatian movement and its decline, or quick decline, was in 1665, 1666. That is the time frame that we are working with. What is the background? So in Western Europe, so in the Iberian Peninsula, or in England for that matter, there are no Jews, at least not formally. In Central Europe, in Germany, there are a few remnants of the established communities of the past. And in Central Europe, in Prague, nowadays Czechoslovakia, and it's not nowadays, but in this type of, in Czech Republic, this type of areas in Central Europe, and to the east of it, mostly in Poland, you had the most important segment of the European Jewry sitting there in Poland and doing well up to 1648. In 1648, and for the next almost 20 years, there are upheavals, wars, rebellions, and as always, and again, we have to be very, very quick here, but as always, the ones to pay the price, whoever wins the war, you can be sure that the Jews would pay the price, because they are the easiest target. Always no one would defend them. If you would take your revenge on them, then no one would come later, and there is no payment to be made. The most famous, again, infamous person of this era is Bogdan Khmelnytsky, who to this day is considered by the Ukrainians as a hero of liberation, but in our history would be remembered forever as extremely, extremely cruel. You have to read, if you want to have nightmares, then you can read the memoirs from his time. So we speak about at least 50,000, that's the most conservative estimation, at least 50,000 Jews that were murdered, and I'm not speaking about all the other atrocities, but murdered at least in these 20 years, between 1648 to 1668, more or less, again, in the era of Poland. So these are times of upheaval and unrest. We also have in the in some of the Western Europe and other places, we have the communities we spoke about last week, the communities of the conversos that were beginning to return to Jewishness, which, as we spoke at length last week, was a great blessing, of course. The Jews are returning. On the other hand, it was a great source of instability, because these were people that came back to the faith, but without having any knowledge about how a Jewish home should look like, how a Jewish community should look like. And you have a great mess of these people coming in, then everything begins to become extremely unstable and unsure. New things are beginning to pop and to rise, and everyone is waiting for something big to happen, because obviously we live, back then, we live in very special times. Things are going, things are happening. In the Ottoman Empire, you had what we would call today the Mizrahi Jews, living under the Islam, under the Ottoman Empire. They lived in relative safety and at that time and prosperity. However, they also had their own share of instability coming because, again, 150 years before came this large wave of Sephardic Jews coming from Spain. And they, in many communities, they were taking over. Why? Because they were much more educated and they saw themselves as the nobility of the Jewish world, which in a sense maybe was also correct. And they come and you can imagine. So imagine that you live in some community in the Balkans or in North Africa or in Asia or in other places. And this is a small community. Maybe there is some guy who learned a few things, but you are chugging along for, I don't know, 500 years. And then coming these guys, very educated, very maybe more talented. Sometimes you'd have money already coming down from the ship, depending on when exactly did he come. And they would just come and they would say, you know nothing. We know Talmud better than you. We know Halacha better than you. So from now on, we call the shots. So in some places, that's exactly what happens. That is one of the reasons why people that came from Morocco, let's say, 60 years ago, or 70 years ago, 40 years ago, and we call them Sfaradim. Now, they are not Sfaradim, they are from Morocco, and most of them have never, they or their forefathers have never been to Spain. But because the Spanish, this wave of incoming Jews from Spain was so strong, so massive, so influential, that they all have been seen from there on as Sfaradim, because they took upon themselves the Spanish authority, the Jewish, of course, Spanish authority. Even in places that did not happen, so what happened was that there were two kehilot. In one place, you'd have the old kehila, sometimes we call them Mista Aravim. So these were the guys that were before the Sfaradim came, and you had the Sfaradim coming in. And again, these happened in a few places in Jewish history up to the 20th century. That you still had these two kehilot living one next to the other. And that's, again, that is a source for instability, because you'd have one minhag here and another minhag there, and things are in the flux, and who is correct and who is right. And so everyone basically all over the world is waiting for something to happen. And when everyone is waiting for something to happen, that you can guess that something would happen. And that is, again, a very terse introduction to the background of the Shabtai Tzvi story. Shabtai Tzvi was born in Izmir in 1626. 1626, he was born on Tisha B'Av that happened to be on Shabbat. So already he's ticking two boxes, right? Shabbat and Tisha B'Av. He is born and he's called Shabtai after the Shabbat that he was born in. So that's why he's called Shabtai. He was very skilled and very smart, and also a very troubled young guy from a very young age. Now, a lot was written about Shabtai Tzvi. If you are interested, you can easily find it on the internet, and obviously in libraries, in books. People were trying to analyze his psychological, his psyche. Me, that's obviously, I'm not in any way have any credentials to define what exactly pathologies did he had. It's almost universally agreed that he had problems, deep problems. Gershom Shulem is considered by many to be the greatest scholar on the subject of Shabtai Tzvi, he had this theory, which he himself is qualifying. He says, obviously, it's difficult as it is to analyze, to give a psychological analysis of something who is living and among us. So trying to analyze someone that lived 200 years ago, 400 years ago, obviously that is much, much more difficult and impossible. But he tried to say that he was a bipolar, who had in his, while he was in the mania sessions, then he had also hallucinations, right? Hallucinations, thank you, of greatness. That seems to be the way that he read him. Okay, maybe yes, maybe not. It's not very important. It is interesting, it's intriguing, but it's not very important because Baruch Hashem, the Jews had their own share of people with mental problems as any other nation, I would guess. So what is important is not the specific pathology that Shabtai was suffering from. What is important to us is why did he take with the rest of the people who had no such pathology? That's what is interesting for us. So anyhow, at around age 18, he seems to begin to see things and to hear things and voices telling him that he is the Mashiach, etc., etc., etc. And again, I myself, I'm not a big psychology person, but I did it nadvut in a certain, what is the name? I mean, we used to call it a Beit Cholim Lecholei Nefesh, but they told me it's not a valid name anymore. So a psychiatric hospital, yes. So that was about 20-something years ago. And I met there with someone who thought he was a Mashiach. I met there someone who thought that he's God. I don't think there is anything special in a man thinking that he is the Mashiach. I'm sure that even now you can find in not such a difficult search a few people thinking like that. But he was, something that was important about him, he was, as I said, it seems that he was a type of a genius. Obviously he knew by heart many Kabbalah, Zohar, etc. He also knew Agadot from the Talmud. It's, again, very difficult to ascertain if he had the real knowledge of Gemara and Halacha. As it was, he broke, I think, every issue he knew of. So I'm not sure to what extent did he know and did he care. What he cared about was, as I said, Kabbalah, Zohar, mysticism, what we would call maybe today. Now, he was beginning to walk around, declare that he is a Mashiach. They tried to marry him twice. I think that his parents or maybe his relatives hoped that they're marrying off, then maybe they would be able to calm him down. But both times the kalot ran away a day or two after the marriage. So you can imagine what was going on.
They married.
After the, yes, unfortunately. He seems to have problems in many areas of his life, including the intimate one, and we would stop with that. So this is the guy that we are speaking about. And when he began to declare in public that he is Mashiach, etc., etc., then the rabbis began to throw him away. So he was expelled from one community, going to the other. And again, one time he came and he put a large chuppah and he stood beneath it with a Sefer Torah and declared that he's marrying the Torah. And then he was exploded for one community. And the next community, they found him walking in the street on Shabbat with a stroller, a baby stroller. And in the stroller, there was a huge fish. He put it inside. So these are the stories that are being told. Now, again, I cannot commit to the truthness of any one of them, but they seem to be many witnesses corroborating these stories. In 1665, so I ran now is about 40, 39, he hears that there is a certain guy calling himself a Navi, a prophet in Gaza, called Natan Navi. And he is going to him because he wants a remedy to his illness. He understands that he has a problem. And he wants this prophet to tell him how he can heal himself. However, again, it's very difficult to know if Natan Navi was a charlatan or was he himself deluding himself. It's very, very difficult to know. Be it as it may, he comes to Natan Navi in 1665, and Natan Navi, instead of telling himself go and telling him go and I don't know, what could it do in the 1700s? Obviously there are no medications that he can take. But instead of telling him you are deluding yourself, maybe you should drink cold water or something, he tells him, you are right. You are the Mashiach, and I am going to be your prophet. Let's begin to go around and send letters everywhere that the Mashiach had finally come. And Natan HaNavi is a great, if not anything else, he is a great letter writer. He is writing everywhere, anywhere, all the time. He is using the modern, that is one of the interesting things about the Sabbatism, that is they are using modern technology of the 17th century, but they are sending mail everywhere. In very few short months, the whole Jewish world, from obviously in the Ottoman Empire where he was seated, but also in Morocco and in Poland and everywhere, they hear that there is this new Mashiach coming to town, and there is a prophet and he's giving real prophecies, and the time of Mashiach comes, so also the Torah and its mitzvot, some of them are not obligated anymore because the Mashiach is bringing a new covenant, a new Torah. And just let's read one source written not by a rabbi, just a second. Written by a very interesting woman who maybe one day would have a story about her. I'm trying, I don't know why I cannot have the document. Just a second, excuse me. Yes. So in source Aleph, you see the memories of Glikkel from Hamlin. Now, when she's writing it, she's not in Hamlin, she's in Hamburg. So this Glikkel was a woman living in that time, a very rich woman. Her husband died in a young age, and from there on, she was managing the family business, and very, very well, thank you. She was doing very, very well. And she wrote a memoir, an autobiography in Yiddish. Now, those of you that know Yiddish can try to read. It's old German Yiddish. It is not going to be easy for you. My Yiddish is obviously not up to the task at all, not even for modern Yiddish, and not to speak about old German Yiddish. But you have translations in almost every language now that Jews speak. They have translations. It's a very, very known work. And this is from an Hebrew translation made by about 100 years ago by Azar. So that's source Aleph. So she is writing from the time. מה רבה הייתה השמחה? So, and she lives in Hamburg in Germany. מה רבה הייתה השמחה? כשנתקבלו הכתבים על דבר שבתאי צבי, אין לספר. So when we got the letters about שבתאי צבי, we were so happy that it cannot be told. יותר מכולם קיבלו הספרדים מכתבים. She said, the people that were most engaged and invested in the affair of Shabtai Tzvi were the Sfaradim. Here she means not the Sfaradim of Morocco, she means the conversos, the people that return to the Jewish faith, and they, as I said, something is going to happen, right? There is this mass repentance, this mass chazara b'tshuva. Of course, something is happening in all these troubles that the Jews had in the last 100 years. Obviously, something is going to happen. So יותר מכולם קיבלו הספרדים מכתבים, ובכל פעם היו הולכים עם המכתבים לבתי הכנסיות והיו קוראים אותם שם. So it was not only in the marketplace where they would read the letter, the rabbi would go up to the pulpit, I guess, and he would read it to the whole congregation, because here is a letter coming from the Mashiach, or from his prophet. גם האשכנזים, בחורים וזקנים, היו הולכים שם אל בתי כנסיות הפורטוגזי. Also the Ashkenazim, who I guess they didn't send them letters, so they had to hear from the letters of the Portuguese. So they would go to the shul of the Spaniard shul. הבחורים הפורטוגזים היו תמיד מתלבשים בבגדי חג, וענדו עליהם פסי תכלת משי, זה היה סמל לבושו של שבתאי צבי. So they would, for the occasion of hearing these letters, they would wear their best clothes, their Shabbat or Chag clothes, and also they put tchelet. תכלת is the sign of the tzitzit, the mitzvah of tzitzit that would be renewed when Mashiach would come. So תכלת is the color of גאולה, of redemption. וכל יצאו כולם בתופים ובמחולות בבתי הכנסיות ובשמחה. They would dance, they would play musical instruments, כמו בשמחת בית השואבה. וקראו את האגרות, and then they would read the letters. אחדים מכרו את בתיהם וכל קניינם בתקווה בכל יום לגאולה. Some of the people, what do you do if you hear that Mashiach is coming and you are a good Jew? Then what do you do? Of course, you buy נדל"ן in ארץ ישראל. Right? So you need to liquidate your assets in חוץ לארץ and buy an apartment in נתניה. That's exactly... It's not very far from what these people did. So what they did was they sold everything they had, betikva. I'm sorry. Of course, it's not a subject for jokes. These people suffered a lot because they sold out of their faith, sheer faith. They sold everything they had. That's a mesirut nefesh. And they lost everything they had, as you can imagine. Chami alav hashalom, now she says, my father-in-law, שישב אז בהמל, עקר דירתו משם. So he left Hamel, which was a small city, ועזב את ביתו ואת כל קניינו, ועבר לגור באילדסהיים. So he wanted to be close to where he can take a convoy, a caravan, a ship, something, to Eretz Israel. So he didn't want to be left behind. So he's leaving all of his property, everything. He's not even selling it. And he's going to this hilltime. משם שלחנו שתי חביות גדולות עם כל מיני בד וכל מיני אוכל כמו קטניות ובשר מיובש ופירות מיובשים וכדומה, כי האיש הטוב הזה חשב כי תכף נסע מהמבורג לארץ הקדושה. So he says, my father-in-law was a naive and simple man and I guess a tzaddik. So he just left everything behind and he went to Hildesheim, which was closer to catching these convoys or caravans, whatever it would be, to Eretz Israel. And he lived on what you would call today קופסאות שימורים. Preserved food. Dry food. החביות הללו עמדו בבתינו בוודאי יותר משנה. And she says, well, we were stuck. Afterwards, she's a bad booster. So she's also worried about the practical things. She says, in the end, I was stuck with these חביות, with these barrels, for more than a year. Sitting in my home. לסוף פחדו שמא יתקלקל הבשר ושאר המאכלים. Now, part of it was preserved for the sake of taking the journey for Israel. She said, but it was for too long. We couldn't hold it anymore. ואז כתבו לנו כי נפתח את החביות ונוציא את כל האוכל שבהן, שלא יתקלקל על ידן הבד. וכך עמד ג' שנים, והוא הוסיף וחשב כי השתמש בזה במסע. So this man was waiting for 3 years. Now, the whole affair took less than a year. About from Hanukkah to Rosh Hashanah, more or less, the time that everyone thought is the Mashiach. But this guy was waiting for another 2.5 years later, or maybe a year later. Depends when exactly did he go out. אבל הדבר לא היה לרצון בעיני אל עליון. And she concludes the whole thing by saying, the whole thing was not granted by Hashem. By the way, you see, she is living the times, she is writing from the times. She doesn't say he was a Rasha. She's here and there, right? She doesn't say anything that is definitive. And also she doesn't write very in length. That's the whole thing. Now, this memoir, if you'd buy the book or just look at it in the library, it's a very big and thick book. She writes about everything. She writes at length. She has something to say about anything. It's very short and terse. And this is a phenomenon that you would see again and again regarding this whole affair. Let's continue. So people are believing everywhere. I said in Hamburg, in Poland, in North Africa, obviously in the Ottoman Empire, selling everything they have, beginning to prepare for the journey to Eretz Israel. In Poland, they were doing marches, Afghanot. They were carrying signs with the pictures of Shabtai Tzvi. So the Jews would walk around with the pictures of Shabtai Tzvi till the king of Poland, which exactly at that right moment had nothing against the Jews, and he told them, look, if you'd continue to march like that, we would have a pogrom in our hands and I would not be able to help you. So stop that. And they did stop. But just to understand, the Jews, their back was suddenly stated. Right? They were able to stay after 1,000 years that the Jews was always being throttled upon. Suddenly, they stand up because they believe that redemption is coming. And then they hear that Shabtai Tzvi, the Mashiach, is now going to Constantinople, to Kushta, that's the way that the Jews called it, and he is going to meet with the Sultan and to take his crown. Yes, to take his crown from his head. And sure enough, Shabtai Tzvi is on December 30, 1665, he is going off to Kushta. As I said, that's around Hanukkah, December, that's around Hanukkah. And when he is going off, then everyone is expecting Mashiach to come. Even the people that were suspicious, some of them were caught in the wave. One of the only men, the rabbis, that stood against was Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas. He himself was Spanish in his origin, but he lived in Morocco. He was a very worldly man. He served as the shagrir, the diplomat of the Moroccan king to the Spanish court. Now, just imagine, this is so strange. In Spain of the time, no Jew is allowed to live. But he had diplomatic chasinut, immunity. So he came as the consul of the Moroccan king with kippah, with rabbinic grab, with everything. And he was sitting in the Spanish court, and that was it is. So the Spanish king had to deal with this Jew. So just it's a crazy world. So this is Rabbi Yaakov Sasporta. So he's a rabbi, he's very well educated, and he's very worldly. He understands how the world runs. And he immediately sees that the whole thing is a sham. But he's like a tree in the desert, right? He is calling and no one hears. And he's setting letters everywhere. Now, he is like the Natan Azati nemesis. So he is writing letters everywhere, but also Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas had a very quick pen. He was also writing letters everywhere, and he was also keeping record. It is one of the only records that were kept from the period, because as we would explain later, most of the records were destroyed after the Islamization of the conversion of Shabtai Tzvi, for reasons that we would explain in a few minutes. I think that you can already understand what they were. So, but he keeps his records. Well, he's not ashamed in what happened, right? Because he knew the truth. Even so he's writing letters, and some rabbis answers him, maybe you are right to be suspicious, but A, it may be correct. B, see the movement of tshuva that is going on. If Mashiach comes, then everyone do tshuva, right? Because you want to be in good standing when the judgment day, the final judgment day, would materialize. So why would you stop the people from doing tshuva? That was the answer he got from some very leading rabbis of the time. It's in source bet, I don't read it right now. He writes it in his records, that in the tefillah of, I think it was Shavuot, I'm not sure, of that year, of 1665, then the people of his own shul, they said brachot for Shabtai Tzvi, and he was unable to stop them from saying the brachot. And he says, they answered Amen, and I answered Amen. They answered Amen thinking they are blessing Shabtai Tzvi, and I said the Amen after speaking to myself, saying that he should be ruined. But you understand the type of pressure. Even such a person as Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas was not able to stand the pressures. So that is, as I said, in 1665, 30 of December. However, the Sultan is not very willing to give his crown to this guy, Shabtai Tzvi. And the dreams and illusions are going to meet the harsh reality in very short time. So the Sultan sends ships to intercept the coming Shabtai Tzvi, and they put him under arrest, and he's being sent to Gallipoli. He's being sent to Gallipoli. His Hasidim are able to bribe after all, it's the Ottoman Empire. So they are able to buy Bakshish, that's the ruler of the Ottoman Empire. And they are able to buy for him such conditions for his imprisonment that people that, and everyone is visiting him, they say he's like in a kingly court. He's sitting there and there are satin, right? Satin on the floor, and everything is with gold, and he's sitting like a king. Now it's like a house, I guess you would say, the house arrest. So he's sitting there, but he's living in more luxury than everyone else in Gallipoli, including the master of the prison. And you can understand how Shabtai Tzvi is writing letters everywhere saying, you know, it's like Yosef that was put in jail, but he was really the ruler of the jail and everything was according to him. You can spin everything everywhere you want, and you can lie to all of the people, at least, as they say, part of the time. And that's what they are playing for. And it works. For a few months, it works. And people are coming in to check, and they are really impressed with Shabtai Tzvi because he knows a lot, and he's in one of his mania sessions. So everything is going beautifully. Even the Taz, who we may say is the lead, Rabbi David Segal, the leading rabbinical authority of the time, comes, and he's very old at the time, but he's sending his son and his son-in-law, and they come in from Poland. And they speak with Shabtai Tzvi, and they come back, and we have the record. They say the doch, right, that they give is that we are not sure, but it can be him. It can be him. And everything works very nicely. Then comes in Gimel Elul. So on Yudzayin B'Tammuz Tisha B'Av, Shabtai Tzvi declares that there are not fast days anymore because Mashiach had revealed himself, so everyone should eat and dance and celebrate. And on Tisha B'Av they are doing a Simchat Torah, dancing with the Torah. And now we do not have numbers. I cannot say what was the percentage of the Jewish people that didn't keep Tisha B'Av that year, but it seems it was a very wide phenomenon. Now, again, I cannot say majority, less than majority, a third, I don't know. But it was a wide phenomenon. The Tisha B'Av was not kept that year. And they did a Simchat Torah instead. Okay. It's hard not to think about Simchat Torah that is becoming Tisha B'Av, right? But well, it seems to be disconnected stories. I'm returning. So that's what they did. And then, as you know, after Tisha B'Av always come Elul. And in Gimel Elul comes a man named Nehemiah Cohen. He's a Mekubal. And he is coming to check this man claiming to be Mashiach. Now, Nehemiah I don't know, he was a big Mekubal. He's a man that is very difficult to know what he really was. Again, a charlatan, a tzaddik, very difficult for us. But Shabtai Tzvi knows that he's coming, and he says, you know, he's the greatest Mekubal of all generations, and he is going to accept my Meshichut, and that's why you would all know that I am the Mashiach. So Shabtai Tzvi himself now is stuck, because he declared that this Nehemiah would be the last agreement, haskama, to him being the Mashiach. So Nehemiah comes in, but Nehemiah is the type of guy. We have no one like that in our community. But in our community, you know, other communities, there are, you know, people that have what to say about everything. And they also, but in the Shulchan Aruch, it says in the Mishnah Berurah, it says that, and they also always quote some text from where it would seem that you are not okay. Okay. So as I said, no one like that here, but in other places. So maybe you met. And that is the type of a person Nehemiah is. So Nehemiah is coming in to the jail or to the palace, basically, in which Shabtai Tzvi lives. And he says, you know, how can you say that you are the Mashiach? It says in this book the Mashiach should do that, and in that book the Mashiach should do, and you didn't do all of that. And according to the stories, they discussed that they were shouting, they were debating for 3 days and nights, stopping only to eat and to sleep. And according again to the testimonials, they would sleep with the books in their hands, just sleeping, taking a nap, and then waking up and continuing the debate. Can you say in English, the cat was out of the sack? No, such a, no, out of the bag. On the third day, the cat was out of the bag. And Nehemiah said to Shabtai Tzvi, you know, how can you be the Mashiach if I am the Mashiach? Okay, now, Shabtai Tzvi was trying maybe to do some split, and I would be the Mashiach ben David, you'd be the Mashiach ben Yosef. You can handle that. However, the problem was that Shabtai already gave the Mashiach ben Yosef to some other guy. So, yes, that was the way that things worked there. People would come in to visit Shabtai Tzvi, and you would tell them, you know, very shortly, I would be the king of the world, the Mashiach. So you can be the emperor of China, and you can be the king of the Netherlands. That's the way it worked. But he couldn't give anything that would satisfy this Nehemiah Cohen. So after 3 days and nights, Nehemiah Cohen stands up and he says, you are a charlatan, you are a fake, and you are going to destroy the Jewish people because you are setting us in a collision course with the Sultan. Which was true. Think whatever you want about Nehemiah. What he said was completely true. Now, the problem was that the room was full with the people of Shabtai Tzvi. And Nehemiah was worried for his life. He had good reasons. And he is shouting to the guards, the Muslim guards, please take me out. I want to convert to Islam. That is the joker that you can always take out in order to have immunity. And immediately is being brought, the Wazir, and it was a very short ceremony. You had to change your hat. That's truly how it worked. You had the Jewish hat and the Muslim hat. So you change your hat to a Muslim hat, and you say the Shuhada, that is the, like, der lehavdil Shema Israel. So you say some formulation that you believe in their prophet, etc. And that's it. You are a Muslim. And as a Muslim now, he went to the officials of the Sultan, and he told them that this Shabtai Tzvi is going to wage war against him. And he's preparing the Jewish people for rebellion, which again was a type of truth. It's very difficult to know what was the end game of Shabtai Tzvi. What did he think that he was doing? Maybe he didn't think. It's very difficult to ascertain. What did Natan Azati seem to be a more grounded? I don't know. It's very difficult to know what they were. Maybe they did believe. Shabtai Tzvi, I think, did really believe. It's very difficult to ascertain. Be it as it may, the Sultan decides that he would have no more of this guy sitting like a palace and arranging the Jewish people for redemption. And he's calling Shabtai Tzvi and interrogating him. And Shabtai Tzvi, it seems that he's in one of his down times. So he's not coming full of bravado, and he's coming very, very humble and very down to earth. And the Sultan has a doctor who himself was converted from Jewishness to Islam. He was a descendant of the Abarbanel famous family. So what can you say? He was the descendant of Abarbanel, but that's how it was. And he converted in order to be able to be the doctor of the Sultan. And he says to Shabtai Tzvi, he whispers in his ears, you know, if you want to save your skin, you should do what I did. And Shabtai Tzvi thinks for a minute, and to the surprise and shock of everyone, he converts to Islam. Now, no one thought that that's what he's going to do. The believer thought that he would take the Sultan crown. The people that denied his messianism said that he would be killed. No one thought that he would. That's not from the playbook of the Mashiach to be converted to Islam. So everything went off the rails at that point in 1666. And now the story continued. Shabtai Tzvi lived for another 8 years, going around. He was a Muslim, but also a Jew, and he said that he had to do that in order to collect the nitzotzot, right, the sparks of spirituality in the Arab world. So he was telling whatever he wanted in order to keep the wheel going, you may say. And Natan Azati was also trying to spin his own tales. There is a whole book written in the 60s, no, the 1960s, by a psychologist called When Prophecy Fails But Faith Persists. And in one of the examples he gives, that's the book in which they coined the term cognitive dissonance. Thank you. Cognitive dissonance. And one of the examples that he has there is Shabtai Tzvi and his followers, which when you are too invested in something, even if it's in your face, that it's a mistake, many people would go to very great lengths in order to keep believing that they were not wrong in such dramatic things. Yes. I apologize, I cannot remember the name. I will check it later. Thank you. I'll check it later. It's available for free now in a site called the Internet Archive. Yes, in which they have many books, which their copyright is already expired, and you can just download the whole thing. Gutenberg. Maybe also in Gutenberg. I think I downloaded it from the place called Internet Archive. But yes, so you can find it now for free. Okay, so but I am not going to speak about them. They were studied. I mean, the Sabteanism after the death of Shabtai Tzvi was a very hard, and still to this day, a very attractive and hot topic of study, and very strange and weird things are going on there. They are not our topic today. Our topic today, which all of that was the introduction, now I have 20 minutes for the shiur itself. So, but you cannot understand without telling the whole story. So, or at least the shortest version of it. So, I want to speak about the majority of the people. The majority of the people that were not so much invested that they could not walk back. So, they did walk back. But how do you walk back after making yourself such a fool? Right? I mean, you can just think about it from the outside, about one of the Christians, right? Looking at the Jews, telling them, you rejected our Messiah 2,000 years ago, and you went for this charlatan, for this man that couldn't even die for his faith? So you are a joke. You are telling me that the rabbis know how to differentiate between a real Mashiach and a non-real Mashiach? See who led you astray. So it's a real shame. It's a real shame. Yes.
Did all this happen just because of the letters they sent, or did he go and give speeches and the people saw him?
Nathan Azati was going a little around, but it seems most of it was the letters and people just convincing themselves, and it was the time was ripe for this type of a thing to come. I think it's clear. Okay, and so what were the reactions? The most common reaction was complete erase and deleting of everything that happened in 60, 65, 60, 66. And that is, let's read source Gimel. So that's a response from Rav Shmuel Abu Hav, and he is writing in 1674, so about 10 years after the events. על אותו המכונה בשם משיח. לא מן הפרושים אלא מן הצבועים. So he's a hypocrite, he says. This one man that is calling himself the Mashiach. מתהפך לכמה גוונים לכל אחד לפי שרירות ליבו ודמיון רוחו. So he's telling everyone whatever he wants to hear. I think it's the last year of the life of Shabtai Tzvi. אשר בדו מליבם קצת מבני עמנו זה כ8 שנים וילכו אחרי ההבל ויאבלו. He says some of our people are going after him. הלכו אחרי ההבל, they are going after the stupidity. אך מתוך גנותם ראוי לספר בשבחם. But out of their evilness and the bad things that they did, you can also praise them, meaning praise our people, not Shabtai Tzvi. Why? שבהישמע דבר אמרתו וחיללו שם שמיים בפרס. So when we heard that he converted and that he was discrediting the name of God, כל שעבר עליו רוח רעה מבוהלת בראשונה לטעות אחריו. Everyone that in the beginning was carried with the spirit, with the wind, the bad spirit after him, בכל קהילות הקודש, in all of the holy communities, שבארץ ישראל, תוגרמה, in Turkey, Turkey, אשכנז, Germany, פלנדיש, is Falandria, is the Netherlands, פולניה, פולנד, רשע, חזרו בהם והודו לדיברות הראשונות של המוכיחים אותם בשעת כלכלתם. So most of the people repented, understood that they were mistaken, ושרפו כל פנקסיהם וכתביהם אשר נקרא שמו עליהם. They just burnt everything, all the testimonies, all the letters, everything was destroyed. למען לא ייזכר ולא ייפקד ביניהם, so his name would never be mentioned again. It's to the measurement that most of the פנקסי הקהילה That's, how do you say Pinkasei Kehila in English? That is like the community books they were keeping with all the takanot and their history. In most of them from Ashkenaz, the year 6065, 6066, the pages are missing. They ripped them. That was the way they handled that. It's very strong. It's a very strong symbolic act to rip off 2 years of your history. After the corona, they said it's last year. Do you remember that? It's a year that we want to erase. They didn't only wanted to erase. Think that, I don't know, someone will go over the internet and erase that's like something that the communist government would do, right? Erase any mention of the corona year because we are not happy with the way that we have. So completely erased. That's what they tried to do. There was a ban against mentioning in his name or saying anything about what had happened. Is that a tshuva or is that a denial? Right, that's the real question. I think the hard question. Yes. Depends on me. I think that people that ate on Tisha B'Av, they didn't feel good with themselves. They didn't feel good with themselves. There is a tshuva here, a sponsor in source Daled from Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas. He was asked by the people of Amsterdam, again, returning to these Jews, right, returning. And he says the people of Amsterdam were not as good as the others. The others really destroyed every mentioning of Shabtai Tzvi. But these people of Amsterdam, they continued to keep a flame going. Now you can imagine why. They know of people that converted to other religions, right, but still continue to keep the flame going. So something there is becoming more and more intricate and complex. And also there was a more openness within them to ideas of Mashiach that maybe is being killed, because you have to remember for 2 centuries, they lived with Christian theology, willingly or unwillingly. But that's how that's the ways that their mind was going. So that it was not something as alien to them maybe as to other Jewish communities. However, so what is the response about? It's so interesting. The response is, one of the things they did when Shabtai Tzvi revealed himself, you all know, I think, that in Europe, the Ashkenazic Jews would have Birkat Kohanim only on the Musaf of Yamim Tovim. That's for, no one knows the real reason, but that's how it was. That's how it is for to this day. In some communities, when Shabtai Tzvi declared himself as the Mashiach, they said, so we need to begin to prepare ourselves to return to Eretz Israel and to say the Birkat Kohanim every day. So they began to expand the saying of Birkat Kohanim. So in Amsterdam, they began to say the Birkat Kohanim every Shabbat. Not every day, but every Shabbat. Now Shabtai Tzvi is out. Let's say that he's out. Do we return to saying the Birkat Kohanim only on Musaf of Yamim Tovim? No, it seems as a very small question. They almost split the shul over it. Because, and here it's very interesting the way it is that Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas is telling the story. He says that the regular people, they wanted to forget everything that had to do with Shabtai Tzvi. They wanted the Birkat Kohanim to be returned only to Yamim Tovim. But the rabbis of Amsterdam, they said, no, it's a mitzvah. We already gained it. Why should we go back? And we know now what Rabbi Yaakov Sasportas may have only suspected, and that is that some of the rabbis of the Amsterdam community, the Portuguese Amsterdam community, even 100 years later, were secret Sabbateans. They were secret Sabbateans. Yes, they were believers in Shabtai Tzvi, even 100 years, 150 years, Shlomo HaElyon and others. So it's very difficult to know what was just because they wanted the mitzvah of Birkat Kohanim, what was because they believed that something is still there. And he is writing to them, he says, you should erase every mention and everything that came because of Shabtai Tzvi, and even if it means having less mitzvot and having less Birkat Kohanim, so be it. Because everything, no good things can come out of evil. That was the approach. Rabbi Chaim Falachi, that is from Morocco. I spoke about Ashkenaz, I spoke about Amsterdam, now Morocco. Kol HaChaim, says Rabbi Chaim Falachi again, 150 years after the event. כבר יש קבלה מרבותינו ואבותינו הקדושים, שלא לדבר מטוב ועד רע על עניין שץ. They didn't even wanted to say the name Shabtai Tzvi. So they called him Shatz. He says, we have a Kabbalah. So we have a Masoret, a tradition from our rabbis and our holy fathers that we should not speak anything from good to evil about Shatz. גם קבלו תקובנו, גם ברך לא תברכנו. We do not curse him, we do not bless him, we do not speak about it. It never happened. I find it fascinating from a psychological point of view, also from a tshuva point of view, because this is a question that was debated between the rabbis thousands of years ago. The question was, if I did, as a person, as an individual, I did an avera, and I went to Yom Kippur, and I made a vidui, I mentioned the avera, I repented, I never came to it back again. Next Yom Kippur, 10 Yom Kippurim from now, should I still say the vidui for this avera, which I made maybe 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago? Should I carry an avera, which I repented for, with me? Complicated question, right? A complicated question. And the debate between the sages. A debate between the sages. It's in source Zayin here. Tanu Rabbanan. עבירות שהתוודע עליהם יום הכיפורים זה, לא התוודע עליהם יום כיפורים אחר. אם שנה בהם צריך להתוודות יום כיפורים אחר, ואם לא שנה בהם וחזר והתוודע עליהן, עליו הכתוב אומר ככלב שב על קיאו, כסיל שונה בהיוולתו. So the sages, so חכמים, some of them said, if you have repented, you fully repented, you didn't return to the sin, leave it behind. It's done, it's over, don't think about it, don't speak about it. And they say if you do, it's a very sharp pasuk they use. It's like a dog. Now, I don't have a dog, but I heard from dog owners that it does happen. A dog sometimes would eat something, and then he would vomit it out, and then return to eat it again. Is that correct? Yes? Okay. Yeah, and I heard from a few dog owners. So they say, doing a vidui for something you already repented for and finished with, that's like this dog still rolling in his own vomit. I apologize for the picture. However, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Kol sheken shehu meshubach. No, it is praiseworthy to say the vidui again, even 50 years later. Sheneemar, as it says, Ki pish'i ani eida. I would always know my crime, v'chatati negdi tamid. And forever I will have my sin against me. Rambam rules as Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that you should mention the sin again. Other Chachamim ruled as Chachamim, that you should not. It seems that the bottom line is that you can choose. It's really a very deep psychological question, but I would say what I think. The problem is, if you too quickly delete a sin, and you tell yourself you repented, it may be that you only healed the symptoms and not the root causes. And there is something, a very human, I think, tendency to put the evil and the bad behind us, especially if we are very ashamed and we look very foolish with what we did. So let's just decide that we do not speak about it. That is something that we do not discuss. Maybe many of us, as in their family, we sit with the family table chag, and there are certain topics that are being ignored. Everyone knows about, and maybe it's for the good. Everyone knows about them. Let's just not speak about this uncle. Let's not speak about it. However, the question is that healthy for the long run? And I don't think there is a single answer. Maybe that is why the halacha gives some room for maneuvering. Because sometimes, yes, that's the only way to overcome. Sometimes it's a denial that in the end would explode. Now, I'm generalizing here because we speak about almost the whole of the Jewish people here, and obviously some rabbis did that, some rabbis did the other, but I think that we can say that the major answer, the mainstream answer was just put it behind and go forward. That means that the root causes were not being treated. What were the root causes we can think about? Why did people go after Shabtai Tzvi? So the most that the rabbis did was they said it is because of the decimation, this is the word of Kabbalah, the dissemination of Kabbalah. So people that are not worthy are learning things they do not understand, and that caused them to be maybe too much appreciating towards phenomena that they shouldn't be dealing with. So there were movements to ban Kabbalah learning in age less than 40, which may be part of the solution, but it's very superficial. It's again sweeping under the carpet, not dealing with the things as they are. Dealing with the things as they are where, for example, how do you give meaning to simple Jews who feel that their life are in trouble, turbulent times, and they suffer? They are not in a position in which they can learn Torah. So what Jewish meaning do they have? Because Shabtai Tzvi suddenly came in and he gave them meaning. Root problem was that the Rabbanim, now again, I'm generalizing, and I should be very, very careful. I'm speaking about Gdolei Olam. However, many of the Rabbanim were very deep and invested and engaged in Torah learning, but less in speaking and leading the people in a charismatic way. Shabtai Tzvi and Natan Azati, they were all about speaking with the people, raising them up, mobilizing them. No answer was given to that. It is. I would return to Hieta again in a few minutes. And maybe the most important thing is that modernization, again, I'm thinking about the 17th century, but the beginning of modernization meant that the Jewish people returned to be a nation in which people from Yemen to Asia can, from Spain, not from Spain, in Spain there were no Jews, but from the Netherlands can become engulfed in the same story as people from Yemen or from Uzbekistan. And that meant that there are new opportunities that are being opened for national movements. Nothing was done with that. Now, some of these problems were given solution 100 years later when Hasidut came up. So charismatic leaders and giving meaning to simple people, that was a major part of what Hasidism was about. And it is not a surprise to me that the opposers, the mitnagdim of Hasidut, blame them at continuing the acts of Shabtai Tzvi, because there was something in that, but that was the remedy, that was not the sickness. And also, in Hasidic stories, you can find from time to time that certain Hasidic rabbis were involved in trying to be metaken, to correct the soul of Shabtai Tzvi. These are many times these are frightening stories, and they are going to the abyss, they are going to Gehinom and trying to lift his soul. And you ask yourself, what are these stories all about? So obviously there is Kabbalah here and secrets that I am not in any way, shape, or form, I do not understand. And that's obviously, even if I would have understood, I would not have teach them in public. However, one thing is simple to me, is they were trying, as I said earlier, to find what good, what positive things can you carry out? Because from sin, from Hieta, in the end, according to some of the commentators, the Mishkan was born. Because as they saw, as Moshe Rabbeinu saw, that the people needs a physical thing. So the Mishkan was born. What positive thing can you give birth to as a result of the Shabtai Tzvi affair? Can you just delete it, erase it? To just explode again. The third root cause, which I spoke about, which is the national feeling of one nation. I think that was not, Hasidut was not about that. Hasidut was about the individual. And in the end, the truth is that what we would call today, of course, completely anachronistically, the Orthodox never gave an answer to that by their own. The first one to continue the work, it's not to continue the work of Shabtai Tzvi, of course, but to continue the same wave of waking up the people as a people and speaking with them about the opportunity to go back to Zion, he is, of course, Herzl. And he was also blamed. as a continuation of Shabtai Tzvi for a good reason. Again, not because he was of the type of Shabtai Tzvi, he didn't see himself as a Mashiach. Other people did see him as a Mashiach. I think we spoke about that more than once. I just imagine if the story of Shabtai Tzvi, instead of being swept under the carpet, if it was being tried to be harvested for the positive outcomes, then maybe Zionism would have been born 100 years earlier, and not by secular people, but by religious people. Just think how history could have went. So this is a story of a national tshuva of a certain type, and also I think it can be a warning tale for us of how to deal with catastrophes and with crises, not always by sweeping after. Sometimes you need to quiet something down, and you cannot return to it because it's too damaging, it's too hurting, but not for the long run. The long run requires that we would look at things and ask ourselves, why did they happen? What can we learn from them? And what good can we extract from them? And with this, I hope, positive note, we are ending today, and we'll continue, Be'ezrat Hashem, next week to speak about Zionism and return b'tshuva to Zionism.
Thank you.
Very good, very good.
Rabbi, you had told us that the Vilna Gaon, one of the